All right, let's dive right in and tackle what is, without a doubt, one of the most notoriously intimidating novels ever written in English. Yep, we're talking about James Joyce's Ulysses. Now, our source material for this explainer takes a really fascinating approach to this literary giant. Instead of getting completely bogged down in endless academic theories, which, let's be honest, is easy to do, it explores the heart of the book through an incredibly creative lens. We're looking at an imaginary conversation between the author himself, his characters, and other literary legends. So, we're going to break down their insights and show you that beneath all the complex puzzles of this novel, there is a deeply, deeply human story.
You know, Ulysses has this terrifying reputation that frightens off a lot of readers before they even turn the very first page. It's packed with obscure references, ancient myths, Catholic imagery, shifting styles, and these wandering streams of thought that seem to go nowhere. But instead of treating that scary reputation as a massive roadblock, we are going to completely reframe this confusion. Think about it. What if being confused is actually a feature, not a bug? What if that frustrating feeling of being totally lost is literally the very first step toward wisdom, and the book's ultimate lesson is simply about learning how to keep going?
So moving right into our first section, embracing the difficult book, confusion as wisdom. Let's listen in on this imaginary panel of literary heavyweights. We've got figures like James Joyce, Homer, and T.S. Eliot, and they're debating why a seemingly impossible book actually matters in the first place.
The modernist poet T.S. Eliot offers a brilliant perspective on this. He points out that complexity isn't just some locked gate meant to keep you out of sheer elitism or vanity. Actually, it's more of a slower entrance that trains us in patience. He argues that modern life essentially broke all those old forms of certainty. So a book that pretends everything is simple and easy might be comforting, sure, but it really isn't telling the truth.
But to ground this highly intellectual debate, one of the novel's central characters, Molly Bloom, chimes in with something wonderfully practical. She reminds us that a book, much like a real person, takes time and a whole lot of forgiveness to truly understand. I mean, think about it. You hear a phrase, you notice a silence, and only way later do you think, oh, okay, now I get it. You'd never expect to know a person deeply in just a single afternoon, right? So why on earth would we demand that from a profound book?
The crucial takeaway here is that feeling lost isn't a sign you should just throw in the towel. It's actually an honest condition of reading deeply. Our imaginary Joyce makes this great point. The page isn't there to flatter you and sing you to sleep. It's meant to wake you up. If you only have 20 minutes to read before bed, just let the book pass through you like city traffic. Catch whatever catches your eye, and seriously, forgive yourself for not understanding every single detail right away. Just keep going.
This brings us to Section 2, the modern Odyssey, finding home in a broken world. Now here is where Joyce does something incredibly ambitious. He takes the grand, ancient, mythic world of Homer's epic and maps it directly onto one single ordinary day in Dublin, June 16, 1904.
There is such a striking contrast here between Homer's Odysseus and Joyce's modern hero, Leopold Bloom. The ancient hero tries to get back home to Ithaca by literally battling sea monsters, surviving shipwrecks, and swinging swords. Bloom, on the other hand, well, he replaces those epic sea battles with navigating completely ordinary errands. He wakes up, cooks breakfast, buys some food, attends a funeral, and basically just tries to avoid pain. He is heroic precisely because he's ordinary. He survives his day through patience, endurance, and these amazing quiet moments of kindness.
As Bloom beautifully points out in our imaginary dialogue, the modern wanderer is fighting a totally inward war. His enemies aren't sea gods or one-eyed monsters. His enemies are memory and guilt. And you obviously can't fight those with physical weapons. Modern displacement happens entirely on the inside. A man can know the exact address of his house, smell his breakfast cooking, feel his own bedsheets, and yet still feel like a complete and utter stranger inside his very own home.
All right, on to Section 3, Fathers, Sons, and Absence, the human core. We are moving inward from the busy city streets to the deeply relational core of the book, because this is where the true human heartbeat of Ulysses is found. It's found in the wound of what is missing.
So we have Stephen Dedalus, who basically serves as the modern Telemachus, the wandering son searching for a father. And then there's Leopold Bloom, the modern Odysseus. Stephen carries this crushing burden of history, religion, and intellect, and he's constantly surrounded by these false fathers who are trying to claim him. Meanwhile, Bloom carries the quiet, constant, heavy grief of his dead infant son, Rudy. Stephen and Bloom are two fundamentally unfinished men. They don't magically fix each other, but when they finally cross paths, their meeting illuminates exactly what the other one is lacking.
When Bloom actually takes Stephen in after a drunken altercation, it isn't some grand, cinematic, tear-jerking restoration of a broken family. Not at all. It's just partial mercy. For just one single night, absence makes room for kindness. Bloom offers him a room, some water, food, and peace and quiet. And crucially, he does it without demanding that Stephen act like his lost son. It really shows us that sometimes true rescue is just opening a door in the dark and offering care without the need to conquer or fix the other person.
Let's transition into Section 4, the mind as a city, stream of consciousness. Now we're going to step directly into the psychology of these characters using a technique that Joyce basically made famous. Joyce absolutely refuses to give us polite, finished sentences, mostly because a perfectly finished thought is so often a lie told after the fact. Instead, he throws us right into the noisy, chaotic traffic of the human mind exactly as it moves in real time. The thoughts are broken, they leak, they jump around, they circle back, and they are completely unedited for respectability.
Just imagine this rapid-fire succession of totally disjointed thoughts pinging around inside Bloom's head as he's walking down the street. Literally, 1 second he's thinking about food, then his wife Molly, then the heartbreaking tragedy of his dead child, which gets interrupted out of nowhere by a random smell from a shop, and then a stranger's hat. If you take a second to reflect on your own messy thoughts today, you'll realize this isn't madness at all. People love to pretend their minds are all tidy and organized, but honestly, this is just a typical Tuesday. This is exactly how the human heart actually moves.
The mind is like a sprawling city. It's full of bright windows, dirty alleys, and closed-off rooms no visitor has ever set foot in. Through this stream of consciousness, Joyce proves to us that a totally ordinary person just crossing the street can contain way more drama and epic poetry than a literal king marching onto a battlefield. By dropping us right into the middle of this mental traffic jam, Joyce forces us to be far more patient and gentle with how we view other people, helping us recognize that every single stranger you pass contains an entire complex world.
And that brings us to the emotional climax of our explainer. Section 5. The final word is yes, Molly Bloom. Here, the perspective shifts entirely. We leave the wandering men out in the city streets and transition to a woman wide awake in her bed.
For almost the entire novel, we only really see Molly through the lens of Bloom's anxieties. To him, she's a symbol, a temptation, a memory, and a source of betrayal. But in this final episode, all of that mediation just falls away. Molly Bloom steps right out to speak entirely for herself. And the pacing here is just gorgeous. All those chaotic, fragmented streams of consciousness from the men we saw earlier slowly build up toward her unbroken, rhythmic, flowing monologue of memory, female desire, and life itself. And the whole colossal journey culminates in one single, resounding word, yes. Now, to be clear, this is not some neat, innocent, bow-on-top conclusion. It is definitely not a fairy tale romance where everything is suddenly and perfectly fixed. No, it is a profound, life-affirming answer that somehow survives the sheer pain of modern fragmentation. It is a yes spoken after the grief, after the bone-deep fatigue, after the infidelity, and after the loneliness. It's an affirmation large enough to just let life continue, despite all of its brokenness. Ultimately, the big takeaway from this explainer is that Ulysses doesn't try to simplify being human. It completely honors our massive complexity. It teaches us that epic moments don't need a battlefield. They can happen standing in your kitchen or in a fleeting passing thought. Heroism doesn't require a sword. It can be as simple as showing quiet kindness to someone even after you've been totally humiliated yourself. And above all, it shows us that a single, beautifully ordinary day is absolutely large enough to contain the entire breadth of a human life. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. If Leopold Bloom's completely ordinary errands can hold the epic weight of the Odyssey, what incredible, mythic journey is unfolding inside your own mind today? You don't need to have all the answers right now. And that's perfectly okay. Just embrace the confusion, keep turning the page of your own story, and I'll see you in the next explainer.